Hello, and welcome to Bear Necessities. My name is Bear, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about beta. I did some rating on beta last night, ran through quite a few zones, and I really wanted to give some of my thoughts of where we are, some feedback for the developers, and just some general thoughts on Varsoon. I'm really excited for the new TLE, and I think there's a ton of potential. Most everyone I've talked to about it is excited to come back. I think for the majority of people who play EQ2, it was their first, maybe second MMO ever. I know for me, I started playing when it came out in 2004, but I had already played EQ1 for about 3 years before EQ2 launch. And just the land of Norath, the lore, and the nostalgia from playing all the way back when it first launched is enough to keep me coming back for every new TLE drop. I hope everyone's getting hyped up for the launch, so let's talk a little bit about the current state of things on beta. Generally, one of the things I noticed and felt right off the bat is how slow casting feels when you're used to having a ton of cast speed and also just reuse. I didn't really have time to set up macros, but I usually have stuff like group curing, canceling my existing casts, other things like that. Also, I really didn't have a whole lot of time to set up a UI since it's on beta, but I usually use something like Dark, Prophet, or Draka, and those kind of help deal with some of the issues that I was having. I thought about in the future, and let me know if you guys would be interested in this, about setting up different UI mods, showing them off in videos, and so if you'd like to see that, just let me know. But I think most of the classes feel pretty good that I've tried on beta for vanilla. Besides summoners, to be honest, I think, and I mentioned this in my mage DPS videos, but summoners feel very, very strong to the extent that on our raids last night, they were pretty much always at the top. And I think generally, if we see them toned down, things will feel much better. We had 0 Sorks in the raid and multiple summoners, but I'd like to see in the future a healthier mix once things settle down. The devs definitely have access to numbers. Multiple people have kind of given them that feedback, and so they know what it is, and hopefully they can find a good way to make them more in line without making them completely unplayable. So hopefully we'll still see them in raids, but just alongside their other tier 1 DPS companions. So getting back to the raids that we did last night, we did Kova Decay, Epic Angler, we did a Meeting of the Minds, Spirits Lost. For Fire and Ice, we did Mjolnir's Lair, Artica's Lair, Drake's Chamber, Throne of the Kramis King. We did some Deception raids with Fire Mist Gully Dracota. I'm not going to try to pronounce that name. We did Vault of the Fallen, that's over in the Fallen Gate area, and we tried those Dracotas out. We also did try some of the contested. We tried Vazgok, Seraph of the Stags, and Vision of Vox. I definitely may have missed some things or zones, but I'll also preface this by saying, we really had a mix of people in just T5 mastercrafted or handcrafted gear. I was definitely one of those people. And then we also had people who had gear from Neck 2, Icy Dig. They had some key heritage quest items like Screaming Mace and Golden Freedy Boots. So we had a real mix of people who have been playing a lot on beta versus people who just kind of created characters, got some crafted gear, used the beta baubles, and were just there to test some rating. But that said, at the beginning of the night, I feel like things seemed to die a little too easy, and they didn't do much damage at all. But I think that we were chatting, or we had a few people who were chatting with the devs throughout the night, because by the end of the night, once we were getting to some of the other Dracotas for the Prismatic and also just some of the raid bosses, they were doing a lot more damage, maybe too much damage, and they had something like 15 million hit points, increased mitigation, things like that. Like I would notice, for example, at the beginning of my night, maybe I was doing 700 to 800 DPS on my Fury, depending on the fight, maybe like 600 to 800, and then there are other towards the end of the night I was doing like 200 damage, 300 DPS. and it was definitely because of mitigation on the mobs, but also I had to heal a lot more. So I think there's definitely a happy medium that needs to be met in terms of, you know, the auto attack AoE damage, some of the mitigation, and overall boss HP. There's another group tonight that's going to be working with the devs on encounters as well. That's this Friday, and hopefully things will get a little bit more smoothed out there. To be fully honest, I think when it comes to at least the instance content that we were going through, I think something in between the super hard encounters we experienced at the end of the night and the encounters we experienced at the beginning would probably be perfect for that instance content, and of course kind of tiered up a little bit. Like, for example, some of the lower raids like the Cove of Decay, Epic Angler, and maybe even like some of the first Dakotas for Fire and Ice, you know, maybe those are a little toned down, or they are less difficult than say the Dakotas for Deception and things like Darathar, etc. We also tried those contested that I mentioned, and personally, for contested, I like the idea of keeping them very difficult. It may be toned down a little, but I hope that contested are kind of like the end-all be-all, so like with gear progression. So we're not in that handcrafted gear, we're actually in gear that you get from raids, that your raid force can eventually be geared enough to handle some of the heavy damage that was coming from them, as well as do enough damage to you know, get through the amount of HP and mitigation that they have. So that's just my thoughts on the raid mobs and some of the instances that we did. Now let's move on to gear. In terms of gear drops, some of the mobs were really dropping a mix of level 40 loot, rares, and level 50 loot. Some of the level 50 loot actually looked really well itemized and looked just really good. So I definitely hope that the gear gets smoothed out a little bit, the drop table gets a really detailed pass to ensure that more of those useful items drop and less of the items that no one's going to use. I think that's really pivotal in ensuring people are engaged for 4 months of Classic. It takes a lot to get 24 people together to raid, and you want to make sure that people aren't wasting their time, as well as people really want to get on and raid and get that gear. So I think that's super important. Otherwise, I had a ton of fun raiding on beta, and it makes me more hyped for Varsoon next Tuesday. So what do you guys think? What type of content have you done on beta? What's your experience been like? What are you looking forward to on Varsoon? I'd love to hear it in the comments. And if you enjoy this content, please hit the like button. And if you want to see more EQ2 content in the future, please consider subscribing and pressing the bell for notifications when new content is available. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.